Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open on a rusty steamboat called the Corrida sailing towards Venezuela. Captain Lansen is transporting a group of passengers who all have different reasons for fleeing to the foreign country. Dr. Webster is a disgraced surgeon on the run for performing illegal operations and sleeping with his patients, if you can believe that. His daughter Unity is simply along for the ride and puts up with him, treating her like a child if she's going to get that inheritance. Dad takes his eyes off her for 2 seconds and she's playing hide the sausage with the Corrida's radio operator Sparks, who should be working. Ava has stolen $2 million worth of bearer bonds from some gangster back home to pay for the ransom of her kidnapped son. The piano player Harry is an alcoholic con man fleeing with a whole bunch of money that he lines the inside of his jacket with. He just plucks off notes to pay for his drinks while Ava returns to her room to find the mustachioed henchman Ricky rummaging through her bags. He's been hired by the owner to retrieve the bonds, so Ava says she will pay him double what they're offering to let her go. This man turns down $40,000 in 1968, but when Ava says she will sleep with him, he instantly accepts the deal as dude just wanted to get laid. Customs officers try to pull the suspicious vessel over, but the captain tells his first mate Hemmings full steam ahead and kinda just ignores them. The agents were only trying to help because Lansen is sailing directly into a hurricane that the passengers should be warned about. Unfortunately, this is a democracy and none of the passengers want to turn around, so Hemmings is stuck on this doomed vessel until the end of the line.
You're all bloody mad!
They might have changed their minds if they knew the captain is hauling about 100 barrels of illegal explosives that ignite on contact with water. Lansen intends to use the money he makes off the phosphorus sales to retire and couldn't care less that he's risking the lives of all his seamen. When the anchor chain slips a gear and ruptures the bulkhead, water begins filling the room where the explosives are stored. Hemmings and the crew decide it's time to mutiny because Lansen is going to get them all killed if they remain on this ship. He takes over captaincy with the intention of abandoning ship while the angry mob carry Lansen into a back room and beat the gosh darn dickens out of him. They then take a life raft over the side while Sparks tries to tell the passengers that they're escaping, but everyone is either drunk or stupid. Sparks says fine, stay here and blow up together, then jumps on the lifeboat, but Lansen shoots him of all people in the back, causing his body to get strung up in the rigging. The rest of the crew barely get away without capsizing, while a few of the most loyalist of seamen remain on board, like Chief Engineer Nicholas. Lansen has the passengers form a Hands Across America and carries every single one of the barrels out of the flooded room, and that's the whole problem solved. According to the captain at least, but the engineer says the ship is still going to blow up no matter how much that blonde shows off her soggy sea legs. Coming to his senses, Lansen says fine, let's all abandon ship, so luckily the rest of the crew left the passengers a spare lifeboat. Shame Sparks had to die for nothing, but everybody else makes it out to sea except for the bartender Patrick, who stays on the Corrida to protect his bar. The rest of the crew and passengers float around all night until the storm clears up and everybody can dry off, especially Harry. He didn't get the memo and tries to drink their last bit of rum, so the captain threatens to shoot him with the flare gun because that's for emergencies. Lansen then tells the doctor to take care of the chef who was bludgeoned during the mutiny, so Unity is pleased to see her father ordered around for a change. That night the captain and Ava are giving each other the romance me eyes when noticing that Harry is drunker than he was a few hours ago. He's gone and gotten into the rum, so Webster tries to stop him, but Harry punches him into the water where a shark swallows him up. One of the expendable crew members pulls a knife, so Ava blasts him with a flare gun, and we have 2 passengers turned killers in a matter of seconds. Their next problem comes in the form of a carnivorous seaweed that latches onto the captain's hand because he just had to go and touch it. The chef then goes crazy or something and hurls himself into the water, where he's devoured completely by the sentient sea flora. It wraps itself around the boat and carries them back to the Corrida, where Pat has been floating around in the hurricane getting drunk. The passengers climb back on board with Pat, where Harry apologizes for feeding Unity's father to the sharks, but she's rather glad. She says now she's free from the horrible man and gets drunk to celebrate, but Harry sticks with coffee and is never touching another drink again. A few rounds later, Unity's Bloody Marys have turned into straight vodka and she's trying to convince Harry to come to her cabin. He's unable to resist the temptress half his age until he has a sip of his drink and realizes she slipped some vodka into it.
Bloody fool!
Harry throws a tantrum because she just ruined his 20-minute sobriety streak and tells the tart to go find somebody else to canoodle. Meanwhile, Ava upholds her end of the deal and lets Ricky take a trip to Pound Town, which is apparently worth 40 grand to this guy. Lansen catches them and gets upset because he thought they were exclusive after Ava looked at him that one time. He later suggests that Ricky climbs down with a knife and cuts their propeller free from the seaweed, but unfortunately he isn't as dumb as he looks.
And we're stuck?
Unity walks up to Ricky because she heard that he's handing out aggressive cuddles, and what's more attractive than both smelling like an ashtray. Suddenly a giant platypus emerges and grabs Unity because Ricky has already had his fun with Ava and now he's just getting greedy. He cuts off a tentacle with a fireman's axe to save the girl when Lansen walks out and sees his favorite passenger being dragged away by a grass-type Pokemon. Cap thinks it could have been worse, and the next morning they find the seaweed has brought them to a floating graveyard of centuries-old ships. They're held together by a thick foliage that can be walked on with the right buoyancy, but we remain on the ship for the time being. That night they meet a native walking on the bed of seaweed with balloons attached to her shoulders to prevent her from sinking. Sarah and her balloons warn the seamen of an impending attack, so they open fire on her pursuers, hoping that they aren't just Jehovah's Witnesses. Luckily they aren't, and the bloodthirsty raiders climb aboard half dressed like barbarians and the other half like Spanish conquistadors. One tries to kidnap Unity, so the unnamed hero bludgeons one attacker, then saves her by punching another overboard. He then shoots a third before being blindsided by a fourth and still manages to put up a valiant fight until his untimely demise. During the fight, Nick has a guy run into him headfirst with a move that cracks a rib but gets himself shot in the back of the dome. When their numbers are depleted, the raiders retreat and we follow them back to their headquarters in a nearby Spanish galleon. It turns out that descendants of survivors from various shipwrecks have formed a community ruled by a boy called El Supremo. The Child King is only a puppet of the Grand Inquisitor, who's a literal man behind the curtain and whispers evil somethings in his ear. The raiding party were told to retrieve the new arrivals, so their failure to follow El Supremo's order sees them hurled into the rectum of a man-eating plant. One of their men are kept prisoner on the corrida and is a religious fanatic who seems to think God speaks through El Supremo. Sarah's people come from the nearby island and spend their days farming, but we never actually get to see any of them. Later she doesn't even tell anyone that she's leaving and just attempts to return home, so Harry, Nick and Patrick go after her with their own balloons. They eventually find her but get lost in a thick fog, so decide to take refuge on a small island of rocks until it clears up. Of course Harry snuggles up in a cave with boobs over here and the two begin making out in front of Nick while Pat goes outside to have a smoke. He doesn't even get to finish it when a giant hermit crab pops out of the rock and strangles the friendly bartender to death. After quite the pathetic axe throw, Nick becomes the hero of this encounter when he opens fire on Mr. Krabs while the ladies cower in the corner. We randomly make friends with a giant scorpion who leaps down off the rocks and engages with the crab because why not? Nick blows out one of the creature's eyeballs so it falls back into its shell, and the scorpion looks over like nice shooting, then wanders off. As they debate whether to stay here or try to make a run for it, the clan comes wandering around the corner like, "Oh, fancy seeing you here." They take the captives back to their ship, where Hugo needs to quit setting off flares to announce their arrival because it gives away their location every time. Lansen sees the fire in the sky, so interrogates their prisoner to learn that it means his chief engineer will be fed to a hungry plant. Nick, Harry and Sarah are brought before the mighty El Supremo, who calls anyone insulting his holiness a blasphemer. It becomes quickly obvious to Nick that the child is just being manipulated by the pointy-headed freak standing on his shoulders, so he lets it be known. However, before he can help the kid think for himself, the nervous Inquisitor orders the three to be thrown into the mouth of the hungry plant. Lansen and the rest of the crew arrive with guns, so they easily rescue their friends because everybody else here just uses swords. They offer a chance to try to escape for anybody who wants to come, but turns out none of these people have ever even tried. Their ancestors failed, so Mr. Pointy had them all believing that there was no hope of ever escaping so that he could continue ruling. Everyone, including Little Supreme, abandons his throne, but his own mentor sticks him in the back the moment he turns to leave. Lansen shoots the Inquisitor in return, who's revealed to be plague-riddled beneath the bedsheets, then throws white phosphorus into the moist executioner. The whole galleon goes up in flames, so everybody escapes out the back window while carrying the dying king along for the ride. Lansen has surrounded the cult's hideout with barrels of phosphorus and launches them from a small catapult on their homemade raft. Out of all those people that fled the shipwreck, the Corrida crew have only rescued a small group of the most attractive women. The Inquisitor spends his final moments praying at an altar while one of his monks jams out on the pipe organ as the flames consume them. Fire spreads through all of the seaweed surrounding the Corrida, and once burned off they can finally escape this horticultural nightmare. It also presumably burns that horny bush that climbed in the window and tried to plant the parsnip on Ava. The Child King never recovers from his stab wound, so we hold a funeral for him at sea and respectfully dump his little body over the side. Some more Spaniards and barbarians have joined their journey, while Unity is now parting her pink sea for the one who Lansen gave a face full of table. And the movie ends.